Well, welcome everyone to another lesson of the Focus on GraphCMS course. I am Marcelo Lewin, as always, and you can get a hold of me right there, Marcelo at headlesscreator.com. Feel free to send me any questions, feedback, whatever you like. I'll return your questions within 24 hours. So welcome, David Barry. Looks like we have somebody already online. We have a couple of people online, so welcome. Glad to have you here. Now, as you all know, for the today, actually, before I skip here, I'm going too fast here. My guest presenter is Jesse Martin. I'm going to introduce him in just a minute, so don't worry, you'll learn all about him. But he's a technical product marketer at Hasura, and he's going to show us how to work with, today, he's going to show us how to work with granular permissions and GraphCMS to shape the data graph. Don't worry, by the end of this lesson, you'll know all of this. Also, want to make sure for those of you watching that my audio is coming clear. Should be okay, but just double checking. Feel free to put it in the chat if it's okay or if there's any issues. As always, before we get started, I will, however, tell you real quick about Headless Creator, because for those of you watching live, feel free to watch live. But if you want to watch it on demand later, make sure you register for free at headlesscreator.com. You'll be able to register there, and you'll have access not only to this lesson, but if you go down way at the bottom, you'll have access to the entire course, which has a bunch of lessons in there, 100% free. You'll also have access to the content modeling weekly course and the Discover Headless Tech course. So it's 100% free. Please sign up. I'm close to 700 registered users. I'm shooting for 1,000 by the end of the year. And I think not only am I going to meet that, but I'm going to exceed that. So this is exciting. So please go register. How to headlesscreator.com. All right, enough of the marketing. No more marketing stuff. What I'm going to do now is for the on-demand version, I'm going to restart the intro because the on-demand version has absolutely no marketing whatsoever. So I'm going to restart the intro, and then we're going to see you in just 10 seconds. Well, hello, and welcome to another lesson of the Focus on GraphCMS course. I am Marcelo Lewin, the Headless Creator. As always, get a hold of me right there, Marcelo at headlesscreator.com. Send me an email, questions, feedback. I'd love to hear from you. I'll get back to you within 24 hours usually. Today, my guest presenter is Jesse Martin. He's a technical product marketer at Hasura. You'll learn more about him in just a second because I'm going to bring him in. But today he's going to show us how to work with granular permissions, which is a semi-new feature. Semi-new because by the time you watch this, it'll probably be in there for a while now in GraphCMS. And he's going to show us how to shape the data graph using Hasura. So we're going to get into all of that in just a second. But what I want to do now is I want to bring on Jesse. Jesse, welcome to the lesson.
Hi, Marcelo. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here. Now, where are you located, Jesse?
Currently, I'm actually here in the US. I'm near Seattle, but typically I am in Germany. So this is why you see vacation mode background in my,
Love it.
my video today.
Hey, you know what? It's more like COVID mode. It's like it doesn't matter anymore, right?
It's all a wash.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, well, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Real quick, how did you get to your position, not just at Hasura, but I mean, what's your background? Tell us your technical background and how you got into headless CMSs.
Yeah, I was one of those that sort of stumbled into technical content, I guess, more as a cottage industry than anything else. Was not actually trained in it. My background's in marketing. My background's in helping customers and branding and helping people figure out how do you embrace these technologies. And everywhere along the way, I always had companies hiring me or engaging with my services because I could do some form of coding. And basically, it's led over the years for me to make this merger now where I do a lot of technical education, but still trying to bring in that bent that helps people understand where does this actually apply to their business? Why is this actually a useful thing? And yeah, I've been doing tech education now for a while, and Hasura is the latest person that has engaged me for that. Loving it. It's a really great company. So yeah, that's where I am.
I think the mix of technical and marketing is great, right? Especially because then you don't do as much marketing speak. You're really, you're explaining it to the masses in a much better, easier way to understand than just pure code.
Yeah,
And that's
exactly.
a rare find in people, usually that combination.
Yeah, it really helps to be able to have somebody who's
Yeah.
seen both halves, not only how to do it, but also the why to do it. So it's great. I enjoy it, and it's offered a lifetime of learning.
Yeah, totally. So I always end my interviews with something personal. Everybody knows I'm a movie fan. Obviously, they can tell by the background here. Um, so do you have a favorite movie, favorite TV show that you love, that you go to? Do we call them TV shows? I mean, we don't call them TV shows anymore, right? Because you can watch them on your iPhone, on your iPad. It doesn't matter what.
I was reminiscing with my family on vacation here about Die Hard. We were big Die
Oh,
Hard fans, so that was always one where mom
that
left
is
the
such a
room
good
and
movie.
threw in the towels. Like, okay, you guys stay up and watch this. And so that's got nostalgia, and it's a great movie. So,
And it's a great
and
movie.
I
And
I
it's a
also
Christmas
appreciate
movie. I
Bruce
don't know why
Willis.
they call it a Christmas movie, but it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah. And Bruce Willis has been making my hairstyle popular
Right?
for
Ever
so that
since. Yeah.
yeah. So that's also
Totally.
good.
Yeah. Perfect. I'm almost there, so definitely. All right. Sounds
Yeah.
good. Jesse, so I'm going to go ahead and share your screen right now. I'm going to stay here. If any of you have any questions or comments, we have How Pedro Schmidt. There you go. Just joined us as well. So welcome. If anybody has questions, put them in the chat. I'll find a spot to ask Jesse. Jesse, I'll have questions, but for now, I'm going to go on mute. It's all yours, man.
Great. So I'm going to go ahead and play this brief presentation. What it's going to do on my side is hide everything that I can possibly see. So if there are questions, definitely flag Marcelo and he will let me know. But basically, as we come into this topic, and I'll wait for the slide to actually appear. At the moment, it's still showing me that it's booting up. But before we actually go into this topic about content-based permissions and the data graph, we actually need to understand what those two different concepts are. And so I have, again, very brief slides here. I want to be able to go through with you and explain those topics in a bit more detail. So we're going to start off with the idea of content-based permissions, especially in the way that GraphCMS has defined that. And when we look at that, we're going to see here is, you'll see it oftentimes sort of shortened down to CBP. And it's like everything in this industry, everything in this space within this industry, the terms sound a lot more fancy than the actual concept they're trying to communicate. And it's all about trying to get a formalized way to understand this, but it's a very simple concept. And so essentially what you've got underneath a typical content access model is you have some form of a gateway, and you've seen this concept in GraphCMS up to this point already using something like the draft and published filter. So if you go inside of your API settings, you have the ability to say, okay, I need to have this API never lets draft out the door, right? And we see that behavior, and that's something that we're kind of accustomed. It works really well. So we say, okay, with this token or whatever else, or with my default settings, I make this request, and only the published content will actually leave my gateway. That's great. Where it starts to become a little more tricky, and up till now was not possible, is what if I had a different metric there, or a different vector, basically, that I wanted to make that same sort of hard filter on. So if I say I have 4 postings here, I've got 3 are called standard, 1 is called premium, and I want to get those out the door. Well, that actually is not going to get stopped by anything because there's nothing to tell me what to do. So what we do instead is we use something like these where filters, right? So we have the ability to say first API gateway layer, and it looks like I just skipped a slide there. Maybe I can go back. I'm not sure. Let me try it. Works. So we have the ability to say, okay, well, we have the API gateway that lets everything through, but because of GraphQL, I can apply this where filter, and now I can be able to still filter down to just my standard posts. The issue with that is when somebody comes in with potentially less good intentions, or for whatever reason we've introduced a bug into our code, and now that proxy layer or whatever service that we're using to actually block that the standard content or the premium content, whatever we're using there as the proxy service, if somebody alters that or gets access to altering it, well, they'll still have access to the keys to the castle. And that's not what we want to actually allow to have happen in our system. So what CBP does is it takes that same logic that we're used to with the published and the draft mechanism there, where we say, like, this token, this actual access to the API does not let any content out that does not match my filter. What it'll do here is it'll say, okay, we're going to actually, like, at the API level, nothing actually even leaves the system that does not match the permissions that we've defined. And that's a really powerful and critical feature to note, because that allows us to be able to do things like potentially maybe some more direct from the front end access. That allows us to be able to just add an extra layer of controls. And when we're talking about external consumers, and then we're going to start to talk about the data graph now, when we're talking about external services that are trying to create this this unified view of our content, well, we want to maybe say, like, I trust you enough, but I'm going to make sure that you actually only can integrate or mesh with this subset of my content, and not create this large, messy structure that sometimes occurs when you start introducing every possible service and every service that those services offer into your data graph. So data graph, I've dropped it twice now. Let's go ahead and talk about what the data graph actually does. So again, data graph is a fancy term for a very simple concept. Let's take a look at maybe a simple content record that we might have. In this case, this is some kind of an e-commerce card. What we have is indication that it's in stock. We have a title and a description field. We have an image. We have the warehouse, the charge number, a serial number. That data, and I've given it color coding for a reason. That data basically deserves to live in different systems for various reasons. Some of that is time series data. Some of that is more CMS based data. Some of that is something that we want to have advanced image CDN delivery speeds. And some of that is real time. Those different constraints on our data, and among other constraints, those constraints allow or almost require that we store our data in different systems, and our different business organizations and different business units are going to be controlling and owning those data sets. But now for our front enders, what we don't want to do, or our developers, period, because it's all full stack these days anyways, what we don't want to do is ship them 30 APIs and ask them to coordinate all of that, like in some sort of an external proxy service. And that's why we've come to really like GraphQL and services like that, because it allows us to be able to actually expose a very descriptive API and query language front end that basically maps this very cleanly. So we can say, yeah, I want to be able to grab on my CMS. I just need the title and description. I want the CDN and the URL. I can shape that with GraphQL, and that's really great. But this concept now, so I mean, I think everybody can agree that this is the ideal way to work with this. Is I have one API and I can query my content all in context. But that concept, that is the data graph. But the only issue